Welcome! This time on WoodWorks, we'll make this coffee table made out of maple with an exotic bubinga wood veneer top. So please, join us! Hi, I'm David Marks. Welcome to WoodWorks. This bubinga veneer coffee table gives us an opportunity to work with commercial veneers. We'll also share some tips and techniques on creating inlays and making contemporary curved legs. This modern coffee table is hard to ignore with its beautiful contrasting woods. The light-colored maple of the legs and apron reveals simple curves in a delicate bead that is contrasted with the fantastic fluid-like texture of the bubinga veneer top. Surrounded by a simple ebony inlay to complete the picture, this table will command attention at any gathering. There are some really fun and interesting woodworking techniques that make up this project. The top, with its bubinga veneer, is created using the vacuum press. The curved legs are made of solid maple and are shaped on the bandsaw, then finished by hand. Take a closer look at these aprons. This beading creates a really pleasing shadow line that gives our table a greater sense of depth. We've already milled up some apron stock. We left them a little bit long, so we'll begin by adding our beading. We'll make the beading out of 1/8-inch thick maple stock, cut into 1-inch strips at the bandsaw. Then, we run the strips through the drum sander to remove any rough spots left by the bandsaw blade. Now we attach our beading to both sides of our apron stock using yellow glue. We apply glue to the apron and the beading to make sure we have a strong bond. Using a flat surface will ensure that the beading will stand proud above the apron. And then apply good, even clamping pressure. Once the glue is dry, use a hand scraper to clean away any excess. At the table saw, we'll make trim cuts on both sides of our long and short apron stock to get them to proper length. Now we're ready to start making our joinery. We're going to use mortise and loose tenon construction to join our legs to our apron. Our stock is 7/8 of an inch thick, so we want our mortises to be 3/8 of an inch thick. We'll center the cut, and then we'll position the mortise so it's 3/8 of an inch down from the top edge. At the multi-router, we cut mortises in the ends of all of our apron stock. The depth of the mortise is set to 3/4 of an inch. Our leg stock is already milled up, and it's 1 3/4 of an inch square. Now before we taper and shape the legs, we want to cut the mortises in the legs while our stock is still square. Now the position of the mortise is important because we want to create a 3/8 of an inch reveal here where the apron joins the leg. So we'll set the mortise 3/8 of an inch down from the top to line up with the mortise that we already cut in the apron. And we'll set the mortise 5/8 of an inch back from the front edge to create that 3/8 of an inch reveal. Again, we'll use the multi-router. We'll cut 2 mortises in each leg. The multi-router, with its linear motion bearings, makes the repetitive task of cutting mortises easy and precise. Next, using the table saw, we cut our tenon stock to length. For the tenons, we're using 3/8 inch thick maple stock. We rounded the corners to match all the mortises we cut in the aprons and legs. With the joinery cut on our legs and apron, it's time to do a dry fit. Our joints are looking tight and square. So while our base is dry fit and clamped together, this is a good time to lay out the marks for the notches that we'll cut on these inside corners of the legs. This is where we'll set in our tabletop. At the drill press, using a 1/2 inch Forstner bit, we carefully drill away the notches on each leg. The depth of the cut is 3/4 of an inch. the thickness of the plywood substrate for our tabletop. Later, when the legs and apron are glued up, we'll clean up the notches. These contemporary legs are shaped using two different templates. One will guide the curve cuts on the two inside faces, and the other will lay out the rounded shape on the outside of the leg. We'll begin shaping our legs by transferring the outline of the first template onto the two inside faces of our leg stock. We rough cut the curves of the leg at the bandsaw. To keep the leg square for the second cut, tape the fall off back onto the leg and make the second cut. Now we have rough curves on the inside faces of our leg. Next, we smooth the surfaces of the legs using a hand plane, block plane, and a number 80 cabinet scraper. Next, we trace the second template onto the top of our legs. To hold the leg securely while it's being shaped, we made this cradle out of some scrap wood. Simply double stick tape the leg into the cradle, set the cradle into the vise, and then start shaping to the pencil lines. A block plane shapes the legs efficiently. By removing wood quickly with every stroke, it creates the curved surface we desire. Next, we use a hand scraper to finesse the curve and smooth out the surface of our legs. Now that all of our pieces are ready, we can glue our base together. As you're clamping it up, make sure that you check that it's square. Now, we'll make our veneered top. Now that our base is dry and our corners are square, we can take our final measurements and then begin making our tabletop by cutting our plywood substrate. We're using apple plywood that's 3/4 of an inch thick for our substrate, and we cut it a bit oversized at the table saw. Here's our bubinga veneer. Bubinga is an African hardwood. It's known for its reddish color, and it also maintains that color without fading. This particular piece has a spectacular grain pattern. Bubinga is considered an exotic wood. It comes from Africa, and it's generally available in limited quantities as a veneer. Commercial veneers are usually 1/42 of an inch thick, and the great thing about them is that you can get rare woods from around the world with spectacular figure and grain patterns like this quilted bubinga. To maintain equilibrium, we need to apply veneer to both sides of the substrate. We don't need to use an expensive wood like bubinga for the bottom, so instead we use mahogany that's cut to the same thickness. The bubinga and mahogany veneers are thin enough that we can cut them with a utility knife. Using the plywood substrate as a straight edge, we run the knife all around the edges and cut both veneers slightly oversized. Because commercial veneer is so thin, it cracks easily and it can have imperfections. Now if you find any cracks or pinholes in the veneer, don't worry. You can always add some veneer tape to the finished side, and this will hold it together during the glue up. Adding tape will also prevent the veneer from cracking further. Even though you have to work quickly, always handle the veneer carefully. And be prepared. Make sure you have all of your materials on hand. To begin, we apply yellow glue evenly to our substrate. Then, we apply glue to our mahogany veneer. Make sure you have uniform coverage with no dry spots. Next, we place the substrate onto the mahogany veneer. Now, evenly apply glue to the top of the substrate. Then we apply glue to the bubinga veneer. Once the glue is on the veneer, move quickly, as it will begin to bow immediately. Place the bubinga onto the substrate and tape the wood sandwich together so both veneers don't slip out of alignment. Next, we place the wooden glue sandwich in between two cauls. Each caul is covered in plastic so the excess glue won't stick to it. Now, insert the sandwich into the vacuum press. Once the tabletop is in position, seal the bag tightly. The vacuum press will apply over 1,500 pounds of pressure per square foot, bonding the veneers to the substrate. It's a good idea to keep the press warm to get the best bond, especially when you're working with commercial veneers. If it's cold outside, you can cover the bag with an electric blanket and add a tarp to maintain the temperature at 80 or 90 degrees. The bubinga veneer tabletop is dry and it really looks great. We use a scraper to clean up the surface and remove the excess glue. Now we'll finish our tabletop. A block plane is a good tool for cleaning up one edge. We want one edge smooth and flat so that it can sit flush up against the fence on the table saw. To trim the width of the tabletop, we first set the flat edge against the fence and remove a little bit of stock off of each side until we reach the proper width. Be sure to use a fine plywood blade to get a clean cut. Then, we add the crosscut sled and trim both ends to proper length. To support the top, we added ledger strips, pieces of 1/2 inch maple along the inside of the apron. We simply cut these to length so they butted up against the inside corners of the legs, and then we glued them in place. Let's see how the top fits. If it doesn't come out just perfect, don't worry. The channel for the inlay will cover any slight imperfections or gaps. Here's some good advice. When you're adding your ledger strips, it's important to make sure that your tabletop sits slightly below the edge of the apron. Now, a good way to accomplish this is by adding a little strip or two of blue tape along the edge. As long as the blue tape sits level with the apron, you can be confident that your ledger strips are in the right place. Now we're ready to glue in our tabletop. To attach our tabletop, we apply yellow glue to the top of the ledger strips and to the sides of our top. Once it's in place, gently tap it down with a dead blow hammer. Here's a tip. Be sure to add tape around the frame and edges. This will protect the bubinga from any excess glue. Finally, we use as many clamps as necessary to get a strong bond while it dries. After the top is dry, we make a few light passes with a hand scraper to flush up the edges of the apron. It's a good idea to leave the tape on the bubinga veneer to help protect it while we're scraping the apron. It's interesting how a simple thing like a thin piece of ebony inlay can add a powerful contrast to a piece like this. To start the process, we'll route a channel for the inlay. Now we'll use a plunge router with an 1/8 inch carbide bit in it, and because our legs are offset from the apron, we need to establish a straight edge so the router fence has something to ride against. All we need to do is to clamp on a piece of 3/4 inch MDF onto the apron that's notched to go around the legs. We run the plunge router along the edges, stopping shy of the corners. Then, using a sharp chisel, we make the corner channels for the inlay square. One more thing. You always want to cut the channel for your inlay first before you cut the ebony. If your edge chips out while you're making the cut, you can always repair the damage by routing the channel a little bit wider and making the inlay a little bit bigger. Now we'll finish our ebony inlay. Ebony is a very dense wood that grows in Africa. The stock that we're using is called Gabon ebony. It's known for its jet black color. We've milled up strips that are 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch to fit the channel that we just cut. And now we're putting it through the drum sander to remove the cuts from the bandsaw and to take it down to its final dimension. Next, we use the disc sander to gently miter the corners of our ebony inlay. We've clamped a piece of wood onto the table of the sander to act as a fence. This will ensure the ebony pieces will line up at a 45-degree angle. Our ebony strips are long enough to fit the channels at the end of the table, but for the longer sides, to get the length we need, we'll have to join several pieces. Now we want to make these look like one solid piece, so in order to do that, we'll make scarf joints. A scarf joint is a long diagonal cut that exposes the long grain of the wood. When we glue this cut together, it makes a bond that appears almost hidden. To make the joint, we've made a jig out of MDF. The jig positions our piece of wood at a slight angle and acts as a fence as we sand the long miters into the ends of the ebony. It's always a good idea to check the fit. Use some yellow glue to add the inlay. Set it in place and then add a little bit of clamping pressure. Once again, it's a good idea to use some masking tape to protect the veneer. And once the glue is dried, take a scraper and use that to flush the ebony level with the tabletop. The bubinga veneer top captures the eye and your imagination with its rippling natural beauty. The stylish curved legs and the clean lines of the apron support the top with contemporary simplicity and strength. This coffee table will serve up a lot of attention in any household. The tung oil finish adds depth to the natural color of the bubinga and really brings out that three-dimensional quality of this exotic wood. Now, if you can't find bubinga, you can always use something like this figured mahogany or figured cherry. There's literally dozens of choices out there, so consult your local wood dealer. I'm David Marks. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on WoodWorks.